Snoring can disrupt marriages and cause serious health problems. Call Sleep Better Northwest first, the experts in dental sleep medicine. Their medically approved, custom-fit oral appliances will have both you and your partner sleeping better and being more productive throughout your day. Don't wait. Snoring and sleep apnea can signal potential strokes or heart attacks. For more information, visit needbettersleepnow.com and download our health guide today. Sleep Better Northwest, the experts in dental sleep medicine.
Welcome to Let's Talk Spokane, where host Ryan McNeese seeks out and discusses the latest on a variety of hot local topics. Now, here's your host, Ryan McNeese.
Welcome to Let's Talk Spokane. My name is Ryan McNeese, and I'm fortunate to have at the table today Darren Watkins. He is the current marketing manager at Gonzaga Law School, and Jeff Geldine. He's the assistant dean of external relations. Thank you both for joining us today.
Our pleasure. Great being here.
I think what we want to jump in and talk about right off the bat is there's been a lot of changes at Gonzaga Law School and really a lot of changes in the legal world nationally. Let's talk about that a little bit. Give me a little bit of how those changes have affected Gonzaga Law School.
Yeah, when the economy crashed, I guess for lack of a better word.
That's a good word.
Back in 2009-ish. The legal education sector went along with it. We saw a tremendous downturn in big law, meaning big law firms. We saw a lot of contraction in just the general legal services market. And with that, it trickled down to the legal education sector. And you're an attorney, you know how the business at that time was. And what we saw is consumers taking a real hard look at whether they wanted to go to law school.
And you guys were probably seeing kind of boots on the ground, how the numbers actually looked in terms of applications coming in the door.
Yeah, we're seeing nationally it's about 35 to 40% less people going to law school than 2009. And so it really impacted a lot of law schools across the nation. The top 20 or 25, 30 ranked law schools maybe didn't take a hit, but schools below that all have had to adjust their philosophy, their thinking, their enrollment strategies, their budgets. So it was a tough time.
Well, and no matter how you look at that, mathematically, if you're a 35% reduction, and let's make sure we're clear, that's just not Gonzaga Law School.
Right.
Obviously, you saw some effects of the overall economy, but nationally, those numbers rang true as well. And so each of those law schools, including Gonzaga, having to accommodate budgetary issues when you put each individual at a significant amount of tuition, you had to make some substantial changes. We did.
And, being a private law school, we don't rely on state funding. We are a tuition-driven institution. And so, we had to make changes. But you hit on a good point. This was a national downturn, the way legal services were offered in this country, as well as the way legal education was delivered. As we all know, higher education is an expensive proposition, no matter what profession, medical, law, graduate.
Right.
And the consumers just started really looking at the return on their investment as far as going to law school and what was going to come down the road.
It seemed like that was, and you mentioned the downturn in 2009, it seemed like literally a daily, if not weekly, Wall Street Journal concept, whether it be law school, medical school, as you indicated, most graduate programs, as to does this make economic cost-benefit sense? Should I go get a law degree? It's going to cost me X amount of dollars. Should I go to medical school in all other areas of graduate programs? So it really kind of was a systematic challenge.
It was, and
you just happened to be in the hot seat to figure out how to accommodate that challenge.
We were, and that was about the time. I was just starting at the law school then. So my first year, actually, it hadn't hit yet, and we had more students than we had hoped for. And then literally by the second year, I started seeing the decrease, and that really kind of, the pattern was the same for about 4 or 5 years. We feel now, though, that we've all, I don't know if I'm going to say hit bottom, but we've leveled out from an enrollment standpoint. This last LSAT, which is the admissions to get into law school, the test, we did see a slight increase.
Well, and I think you're making a good point. How did Gonzaga Law School proactively hit this challenge head on?
And that's a great question, because each law school has taken different approaches to this. I talked to a lot of my colleagues that are out in the field. During this time, we've had some change in leadership. And so I would speak to what our current dean, Jane Corn, has implemented at the law school. Of course, Ryan, you're on our board. What kind of leader she's been for us. But one thing Gonzaga, Dean Corn and the president of Gonzaga has been very committed to is that we did not compromise our core credentials of our incoming class. Some law schools have made the decision to meet their budget to lower their entering credentials.
And that's a tough, I respect that, because that is a tough decision. The first question probably in any board meeting of any industry would be, how do we cut costs, keep revenues up? And unfortunately in the law school category, it might be lowering those credentials. But it sounds like you guys held the line.
We did. We feel that it's not ethical to bring in students who, based on some of the statistical research that have been done, either won't graduate law school or will never pass the bar. And LSAT scores and GPA are predictors of that type of success. Of course, they don't always predict perfectly, but Dean Corn has been very committed, as has President McCullough, to ensuring that Gonzaga and Gonzaga Law brings in the right type of students. And this will serve us better in the long run.
I think so, too. And once you've brought in those students, it sounds like also obviously curriculum and staying on the cutting edge of curriculum is part of that systematic, proactive issue. What have you done with curriculum in the last several years during this challenge?
Right when I was starting, our dean at the time was a man named Marty Martin, who's now the president at Drake. Marty did a comprehensive curriculum reform then, which really focused on providing students with more of an experiential learning. So the clinic and getting some of those type of tracks involved. Dean Corn carried it on by implementing a real nimble and agile 2-year program, an accelerated program.
That's exciting.
So it's the same education, same credit hours. You just go 24 straight months to earn your JD compared to 36. There's just no summer. Same education, less vacation.
Yeah, and I personally did the 3-year program. I can only imagine the intensity of a 2-year program. That's a lot of substance.
It's not
to
for
get
everyone.
2 years.
It's not.
But on a positive note, we've actually had some interns in our own office that speak so highly of that program. It was their intention to get in and get out, so to speak, but come out with the substance. And the individuals that I've talked to really, really like the program.
Yeah, I think what you'll see, too, is it did attract, and it will continue to attract second career people. So we've got
I agree
folks who want a career change. We've got some folks who say, "Hey, I can't do 36 months, but I can do 24." So,
and the individual I spoke with, he'd come from an entirely different industry. Interestingly, he'd come from the fashion industry in Los Angeles. A little older, coming to law school. He was in his late 30s at the time. And that, just as you said, that was his intent, is I want this law degree, I want to move forward and work for tech-type companies, but I want to get in and get out in 2 years. Right.
And I think we're seeing, so our first class that went through the program, 3/4 of them graduated with honors. We're just now starting to see some of the employment, some of the jobs they're getting. Chief of Staff at Eastern Washington. We've seen some high-level work with the Attorney General's office. So we're seeing that these students are very driven. They had a plan, and it's paying off for them.
Well, there's a lot of exciting things going at Gonzaga. Let's take a quick break and come back also with Darren Watkins, who we have here at the table. Let's take a small break and come right back.
You're listening to SpokaneTalksOnline.com, Spokane and North Idaho's business and community talk station.
Hi, this is Kent Adams, co-host of Business Talks. I'd like to introduce you to a couple of friends, Lisa and Alan Gwaltney of Window World. I've known Lisa and Alan for a number of years and know them to be honest and caring folks. They take pride in their windows, sliding doors, and blinds. So when it comes to your home, call them direct at 509-456-5880. That's Window World of Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. And if you tell them Kent sent me, they'll give you 5% off a 5-window installation. Call them today at 456-5880.
A special thank you to our friends at Tom Sawyer Country Coffee, the official coffee supplier here at Spokane Talks Online.
What is that you're holding? The Spokesman Review? Is it really even a factor in driving customer traffic anymore?
Yeah, sure is. Here, close your eyes and imagine a few people with $5 bills in their hands standing outside the door of your business.
Okay, I see them. I like it. People with money. What's your point? $5 isn't that much.
I know, but what if there were 300,000 people in front of your door with $5 bills in their hands?
Well, now you got my attention. That's $1.5 million. 300,000 people. Where'd they come from?
Yeah, that's how many different people read the Spokesman Review every week in print, online, or on their mobile.
Wow, that's impressive.
All you got to do is invite them in. Run some ads.
The Spokesman Review has 300,000 readers a week? That's amazing. I had no idea.
Most people don't. That's why we're running this ad. In print and online, the Spokesman Review delivers customers for your business.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Spokane. I'm your host, Ryan McNeese, and I'm here with Jeff Geldine, Assistant Dean of External Relations at Gonzaga Law School. Also here with Darren Watkins, the Marketing Manager at Gonzaga Law School. And let's turn to Darren. Darren actually spent quite a bit of time at Washington State University in a marketing position in the Edward R. Murrow College of Communications. Go Cougs. I'm a Coug. Darren, talk to me a little bit about, as we segue, chatting about the opportunities that Jeff has just indicated. Mm-hmm. You just recently came on board.
Right.
Are you excited about what we can do for Gonzaga Law School?
I am, because I think it's a really challenging time as well as a very competitive time. But I think Gonzaga is in a position where their law school really can compete in the environment. There's a couple of things that are at work right now. First off, you have to remember that we are in the bottom of a bell curve as far as just the number of students, right? The lowest ratio of student births happened like 1998. And so if you look at just the demographics in the United States, it shows that for at least another 4 years, we're going to continue to see that downward trend until just the sheer number of available students comes back up.
That's actually a really interesting concept, and we touched on it a little bit slightly differently with Jeff, that this is a national problem. Sure. But Gonzaga needs to deal with it as well.
But at the same time, you have an aging population. You've got, I think it's 2.4, 2.5 lawyers over the age of 55 for every one under 30. So you have a population that's aging out and retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. At the same time, you still have to have those law services.
And right now, they're not necessarily in the percentages entering the profession.
But if you look at the Department of Labor says that actually outlook right now for lawyers is actually amongst the more attractive of the graduate degrees. They've got about a 7% increase expected for the next 5 to 7 years. Salaries still up around, on average, around $112,000 a year. And the difficulty is that sometimes that means moving rather than being in a place that you want to live or where you may have gone to school.
But that's encouraging to hear that statistic. There's been a lot of negative press out there over the last decade, specifically in the legal industry. So it's actually inspiring to hear some statistics that are pointing in a positive direction.
You bet. Especially we're seeing a lot of our young graduates, for example, that couldn't get a job, suddenly becoming very entrepreneurial, starting up their own firms. We have a couple of our recent grads that went to Vancouver, started up their own firm. It's so successful, she actually hired her own father away from another firm.
I've actually, I know her, and she's done a fantastic job.
Right?
Amber Rush.
So you're seeing that type of attitude now kind of pervade into Gonzaga. Now Gonzaga it's not the biggest law school in the country, but you know what there is a unique set of what happens when you go there, right? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to do a lot more writing and research than you do almost double. You're going to do a lot more. Within 3 weeks of walking in the door, you're going to be in a classroom, or you're going to be in a mock courtroom, or you're actually sitting down with a real client. We had tens of thousands of hours of volunteer time. In fact, just got a national award for the amount of work that our students do in providing free legal services to underprivileged.
Is that through the clinic?
It's through the clinic, and it's also part of a couple of outreach programs through the college itself.
That's fantastic.
That the university supports. And so what that creates, though, that creates a lawyer of a different cut. I mean, what you hear about Gonzaga lawyers is you hear that they are gritty, that they're creative because they don't have the resources at their fingertips like a lot of big schools do. And they get into a courtroom and they compete very well. They are very competitive. And at the same time, you're also seeing a group of lawyers they tend to really polarize within themselves, right? So within this community, within Spokane, I think all but maybe 2 judges are actually Gonzaga University, Gonzaga Law School
I
graduates.
find that to be very true, both here in Spokane County, but also over in Kootenai County. I mean, it's rare not to hear that somebody went to Gonzaga, University of Washington, Oregon, Willamette, et cetera. So I agree with that.
Well, there's a culture there too.
Absolutely.
Right? There's
a camaraderie.
It's also based, I think, somewhat on the sort of the Jesuit philosophies that are at the core of Gonzaga itself. Right? It's one about inclusiveness. It's one about serving others. It's one about conversation. Which is St. Ignatius was his cornerstone.
Right.
So I mean, it really is part of a culture that I think really creates a very strong lawyer advocate when they come out of the building. So the question though becomes, if you've got fewer students and you've got jobs available, how can Gonzaga compete? Now,
whether it be regionally, nationally, it's a great question.
Exactly, and that's a hard question, and that's one that's being wrestled with right now because on one hand, Gonzaga's rankings have fallen in recent years because of budget cuts and things like that, but on the other, fewer and fewer law students are actually making that choice based on a ranking. For example, more often they're making a choice about a school because of where it's located.
Right.
Or more and more, they're looking at cost. Now, Gonzaga is very well positioned. They are positioned here in the Northwest. They serve a great niche in that they offer a law degree program for, especially if you're looking for that Jesuit style education, or you're looking for something with a better core to it than just a public education, right? I mean, public education. As a Coug, I have to say that I was proud of my public education, but at the end of the day, there are elements that you don't get at a public institution, right? You don't hear a lot of conversations about things like the heart or compassion or gratitude.
And Gonzaga lives that. I
live that
personally will
philosophy,
attest to.
right?
Obviously, I was Emma Coug, went to Washington State, had not gone to a private school until I went to Gonzaga,
Right.
doing the MBA program and the law program. And you're absolutely right. It's not just a mantra for Gonzaga. They actually live that attitude.
Socrates himself, who said that if you don't teaching the mind without teaching the heart is no education at all.
That's right.
So I mean, it really is. It does. I think pretend to a stronger advocacy for bringing people in. The difficulty is that law students today are very educated before they even come.
They're an educated consumer,
right?
Of that education.
So we need to. That's part of my task and my charge is to refocus the way we talk, refocus our conversation.
How we engage.
Need to do it more in an online environment. We need to do more, make information more adept and available to their fingertips. Just because they are out there as active consumers and they're shopping and they are looking and they are making decisions even up to the last minute. The culture now is such that we had 19 students change their mind in the last few weeks before law school.
And the difficult thing there is you Jeff, you and Darren, you could be doing your job 100%. And 19 people just change their mind for many different factors.
It's very competitive now.
Yeah.
It's very competitive.
Those are factors you may not be able to
control. But that's some of the factors. So we just have to change. We've had to change the paradigm a little bit. And I came in and just have asked them to kind of step outside their comfort zone a little bit. Ask them to take a look at students differently. Typically they would market to us. They have a set number that they look at for regions, or the set number they look at for what kind of SAT score, LSAT scores with legal SATs. And I've just said, there may be better reasons for people to come than that to Gonzaga, right? Maybe it's because it's a regional location, it's closer to home, which is a bigger
and I would
factor
imagine,
now.
I mean, again, I'm a bit biased because I love the Pacific Northwest, but I would imagine that the statistics, once a prospective student comes to Spokane and sees the Gonzaga campus, both main campus and the law school, it's an amazing facility, an amazing campus. Do you find that
Truly
that's
is.
effective when they actually make it to campus to do a tour, if you will?
But a very high-flying student. It's a 1L, that kind of a freshman is like this there. They call them 1Ls. And she literally says it was because she walked in the building and could not believe. In her mind, it was the most beautiful law building in the country. And it really is. It's really
amazing.
is profound. It's built, and there is just a sense to it, right? Yes, it's wood and lots of glass and the kinds of things you would expect in a legal environment. But I'm telling you, there is almost, I don't know how to describe it. You can't see it from a picture, but there is just this sense and this feeling of grandeur.
You have to visit and feel it.
And when people see it, we have a high percentage of those who step in the building never leave again.
Our admissions director tells us that all the time, that if she can just get people to Spokane, and we've actually done some fundraising for that with some of our alumni base, to help her just get them here. It truly sells. And, I often travel a lot. And
because your job, as far as I understand, takes you all over the country.
It does. And we have alums all over the country. I want to brag about our alums a little bit. We currently have, just as of about a month ago, we had 5 sitting Supreme Court justices, Minnesota, Washington, Montana, 2 chief justices, former governor, congressman. We have someone running for the United States Senate. That could be the key race in the balance of power. We have, local bench. We've got people like yourself who are business owners, practitioners. We've got people working for the government, nonprofits. And I think that's the key now is you and I have had this conversation. If you want to go to law school, doesn't mean you have to just practice law.
That's right.
You
Many
can
opportunities.
do so many things with a law degree, because law intersects every part of our society. And Darren's right. We have to also understand, we may have students come into the law school who don't want to practice law, but they want to learn how to think like a lawyer. They want to learn how to reason, how you've been taught. And so how do we market and talk to them too?
Well, I think there's so much psychology involved, and I respect the fact, Jeff, that you're all over the country talking to alums. That survey, if you will, that data that you are, the intangibles that you're picking up on by talking to hundreds of past Gonzaga graduates, I would imagine you're really gathering some really important information that Darren and the team can really utilize to say, how can we take this information that we're gathering and put it into some really objective plans?
An active alumni base is a very powerful thing, right? Because it means mentorships, it means externships, it means hiring opportunities, it means just being able to pick up running into somebody at an alumni event, being able to talk about the practice. But on top of that, also leads to once people have been in the field for quite a while, they tend to give back to Gonzaga. I mean, it's no surprise why 90% plus of anybody attending the law school gets some form of scholarship, and that's almost directly related to a very powerful alumni base.
And that's a very high number.
Yes, that's a very high number.
And you're right, that active alumni, I think, Jeff, what you're seeing and your team seeing is whether that's not Spokane, just in Spokane.
No.
That is true of Spokane, but you've recently been to New York City, California, all over the country where these respective alumni organizations are, as Darren said, making these phone calls and bringing some mentor relationships together all over the country. But that, I think, goes to, Darren, I think you indicated, I don't know if you used the word grit or street smarts. That's often a name that's given to sometimes to Gonzaga lawyers, and I think that's a true statement.
You're right, and that's one question we have a lot of conversation about now is Gonzaga a regional school or is it a national school? And of course, everybody knows this basketball. I mean, that's helped to put GU on the map for the last decade plus, 15 years. But, we have alums all over the country who talk about Washington, D.C., New York, New Orleans, Texas, you name it, Phoenix. I'm going to Arizona next week, who say, quit boxing yourself into only being a regional school. Think broad.
I would agree with that.
And so we had a professor named Gary Randall back in the 70s and
everybody
80s
knows
and
Gary
90s,
Randall,
right? He started Gonzaga graduates going to Washington D.C. to work on the tax court and some other things, and through that we've started to get a presence on the East Coast. And they love watching the basketball team, but they also love hearing about what's going on at the law school. They're very engaged when the dean and I travel. They want to see, hear that we're doing well, and it is. Darren's right. They compete in big markets. They compete against Ivy League attorneys.
Absolutely.
I mean, guys like yourself and your firm are known to be, as Darren mentioned, tremendous writers. Judges love our graduates because we have a 2-year writing program compared to where most schools have a 1-year program. This is it's a great time to be a law student, great time to go to GU, and the law school plays a huge role in the community. We're having a summit tomorrow.
I was just going to mention, in terms of getting that word out locally, it sounds like you're putting an event together, and several folks, I don't know what your numbers look like right now, but a summit to discuss some of these very things that we're talking about. They're exciting about
how to make the school better.
Right.
Or how to make the school relevant, making sure that we're in the areas that need to be. And to be honest, when you talk about the region, more and more, think about yourself when you were 22, 23 years old, thinking about a graduate career. More and more kids are thinking about, where do I want to live? What's that going to look like? And if your choices in the state are living over in that Seattle, Puget Sound area or in Spokane, Washington, that's a selling point we need to start thinking about.
Absolutely. Well, and I think if we've not talked about it today, we've certainly talked about it before. The incoming student, prospective student, whether it's during school or during their early parts of their career, the costs associated with living in the Spokane region or Kootenai County, they're very, very affordable. Housing's affordable. Lifestyles are affordable. There really are some advantages to Gonzaga Law School here in this region.
We hear, I talked to a lot of our alums in Seattle, and they graduated, they wanted to go to Seattle and live in the big city, and they start off and they either have to live in, Kent or way up north, and they commute for 2.5 hours a day, and they can't afford to live. And I don't know how many times I've heard, if I could find a good job in Spokane, I would come back in a heartbeat.
Sometimes you got to go to the big city to realize why you want to come back to Spokane.
The 5-minute commute. Yes.
I actually did that. I went and lived in London for 6 months and had a great time, one of the best experiences of my life, but happy as could be to be back here in Spokane for the last 2 decades. Thank you both. Darren, Jeff, thank you. It's going to be really exciting to see what Gonzaga Law does. I'm excited to go to the summit actually this week and further hear about what's coming down the pipe for Gonzaga Law. I hope you'd come back to this table so we can see the progress as it moves forward.
We'll do it.
Great.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU. Business Talks wishes you good business and a good day.
Here's a simple way to stay connected on the go. Join KHQ on Facebook and Twitter and be a part of the conversation. Just like KHQ Local News on Facebook or follow us on Twitter before your next stop. Experience why more people follow KHQ Local News than any other station in the Inland Northwest. Be the first to know about breaking news, weather, and all the stories creating a social media swirl. Sign up, sound off, stay connected. KHQ Local News. Right now. Right now. Right now. Right now.